And sometimes I think, did I just like get into a state of something else where I was able to be opened up more? I'm not sure. Out of nowhere, I started crying and writing that I wanted to devote my life to God. I wrote, "Dear God, I have decided to give my life to you." And I wrote, "Give my life" in all caps, and whatever that entails. I want to be guided by you, by the light. This is my pledge. I will work hard to follow this path and bring it to fruition. Please help me do this. Please help me bring light to other people. Thank you. Amen.
Welcome to the Light the Day podcast, where we explore spiritually transformative experiences. I'm your host, Julie Clough, and I am so thrilled to introduce you today to my dear friend, Rebecca Kastl. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Hi, Julie. Hi, friend.
So excited to have you here. Before we get started into your spiritually transformative experience, I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself. And let's just start there.
Okay, well, I'm Rebecca Kastl. I live in Denver, Colorado now, but I'm from New Orleans, and I am a speech pathologist as well as an angel interpreter, I call it, and an energy healer. I had a spiritually transformative experience from age 26 to 28 that I'm excited to share with you about.
Oh, beautiful, wonderful. Uh, Before we talk about what happened in
Mhm.
when you were 26, what was life like before that?
Well, I was raised in a mostly skeptical family that was also interfaith. I have like a very, I think, kind of interesting religious background. My dad was Jewish, my mom was Christian, and then in my 20s, my mom remarried an Indigenous man from a medicine tradition. So I had all these three strains in my family that brought me beautiful different gifts. It's a very long story. I was raised completely Jewish. And then I found out my mom came from 200 years of Methodist ministers. The first time I went to a church, it was a church that my family built in Mexico. Like it's like, and I had no idea. Like I was just totally Jewish. So I have very strong connections to both of these religions as well as my stepdad's culture, which really helped me understand what happened to me when I was 26. Besides my cultural background, I had a trauma at 13 that I was didn't deal with for a long time. And the trauma really gave me post-traumatic stress disorder and insomnia and all of these anxiety. And eventually I went to therapy for it. And I started going to kind of some therapy in high school, more intensive therapy in college and after college. Eventually, my therapist was like, "You're fine." Like, really? I didn't
Mm.
feel fine. And I had done all the therapy. I was functioning. I knew, like, I was doing fine. But at 23, I just remember saying to myself, I want to heal all the way. I just felt something was on top of my heart, and I wanted to feel what was underneath my heart. And I set out this intention that I wanted to heal all the way, which, warning out there, if you decide you want to heal all the way, you might end up having like some really wild spiritual experiences because that's what happened to me. Um, so once I set that intention that I wanted to heal all the way, I started meeting different people that were helping me. So one person I met was a Reiki teacher. I was, I had this interesting religious background, but I was also very skeptical. My dad was an MD, PhD, and I just was not raised to believe in nonsense. And so I met this lady that was like, Reiki, there's stuff coming out of your hands, it'll heal you. And I was like, no, there's not anything coming out of your hands. And please, like, but I was so like, at that point, I was like, I had just was really wanting to try to heal. And I could just see this light coming out of her, even though I didn't believe in it. I guess she felt very loving. And I started going to Reiki sessions and feeling so much better. And I started studying with her. I asked her a lot of questions. I didn't believe in a lot of it, but eventually I was like, feeling it and accepting it because I was experiencing it in my life. I
Mm.
also at that time met a yoga teacher, and she, um, I had had some trouble sleeping, and also like my trauma had left me pretty disembodied, and so the yoga really helped me enter my body in a safe way and like feel present. And I did a lot of yoga. I did like 5 days a week of Ashtanga, and sometimes now even I'll still do that. It's really hard yoga, but it did help me a lot at the time. And then, so from 23 to 25, I was really focused on deep healing. And then I moved to New York for grad school at Teachers College at Columbia University when I was 25. And that's where my spiritually transformative experience happened.
So share a little bit about that because you often call yourself the accidental mystic.
I do believe that. And sometimes I think I could even call myself the reluctant mystic. I think like I was okay, so I went to New York for grad school. I was studying. I'm a great student. I come from a family of like I'm the only person in my family that doesn't have a doctorate, like an MD or a PhD. But so I was like this kind of and I loved grad school. But in January of my first year there, I was writing in my journal. So on the 2 years prior to this, I'd started writing my journal, Dear God. And I would like write, Dear God, I'm in school, or Dear God, life is fine. And I was just writing this in my journal this one night. And now I had been getting over being sick. And while I was sick, I was reading The Tunnel and the Light by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And sometimes I think, did I just like get into a state of something else where I was able to be opened up more? I'm not sure. I was writing in my journal and I felt almost taken over by a feeling. Some people would call it the Holy Spirit. I was just like crying suddenly, like out of nowhere. I started crying and writing that I wanted to devote my life to God. I wrote, Dear God, I have decided to give my life to you. And I wrote, give my life in all caps and whatever that entails. I want to be guided by you, by the light. This is my pledge. I will work hard to follow this path and bring it to fruition. Please help me do this. Please help me bring light to other people. Thank you. Amen. And I was just crying and I really truly meant it. I finished my journal entry about what else was going on in school and then I went to bed. It wasn't like I was really thinking about ever doing that. And it wasn't like I hadn't thought I'd done that. I'd been skeptical, but I'd had a bat mitzvah and been baptized at this point. So it's not, I had all my bases covered, basically for my culture. But I wrote that and then I went to bed like thinking I didn't even really think about the fact that I wrote that. That's why I feel like it was an accident. I think my soul wanted me to write it, but I don't think my personality thought a thing about it.
That makes so much sense. I'm curious. So you have this diverse religious background, but did you consider yourself also spiritual? Because you were kind of exploring these other things. Were you?
I was reluctant. Again, I didn't really believe in spirituality. I was just trying to feel better. I
Mm.
was just trying to feel my heart and like not, be a miserable person. I wanted to be a happy person. I wanted to like I always felt really sad inside because of my trauma and I would see people that were happy and I would like I want to be like them. How can I be that way? That was really so I wouldn't consider myself spiritual. I just considered myself pretty miserable and trying to feel better. So,
Oh, that's so, I so much appreciate you sharing that because I think we all can appreciate that and can relate to that. I
oh,
certainly felt that way in my own life at times, and moving through that is transformative in its own way. Okay, so then things started happening.
things started
Share what
getting
happened.
wild. I didn't, oh my goodness. Okay, so everyone listening, this is when the story gets interesting. I went to bed that night. And as I was going to bed, I saw a light. I literally saw this light. I've asked myself a million times, was this a real light? It went from one end of the room to right over me. And the way I know that this felt very real is that it could see into my heart and my soul. And I could tell that it loved me. I could tell that it cared about me. And I was like, I knew right then, like, I was so scared for this light to see me because I was still hiding. As soon as I was like seen by this light, I was like, I'm not ready for this light to see me. I'm still hiding a lot. And it almost felt, I was just like, go away. I'm scared, go away. And and then I started to feel tingling come into my head, like spreading. And it was like love and peace, but it felt like a headache and it just kept spreading and spreading through my head. I had a boyfriend at the time who was asleep in the bed next to me. And I remember looking at him being like, is he having this headache? Like, what's this weird headache? Like, I was not spiritual. And I just felt this feeling keep spreading. And I relaxed into the feeling and felt a voice come into my head that said, you don't have to be afraid, but if you are, you can wear a hat. I'm going to put a graduation hat into my mind's eye. And at the time I was like 26 and I was like, well, I remember just being back, like, that's not cute. I don't like that hat. Like, here's some other options, like hats you could give me. I didn't understand I was supposed to be listening and receiving a message. So at that point, the voice stopped, but the experience started like from that night. And for the next 2 years, I had all these spiritual experiences come to me. They did happen while I was living my regular life in graduate school. But I had different mentors and I kind of was able to keep both lives going because that's what I had to do after my trauma. Like I had to through my trauma and also keep studying. So I was able to do that. Um, Anyway, I woke up the next morning and I was like, that was weird. I don't know what happened then." I was walking to school and I saw light coming out of everyone I passed. Beautiful ethereal light. Like they all had this glow. And it wasn't just like, oh, you're glowing. It was like heavenly white, golden light around every person. And it made me love everyone. It made me feel like they were all completely beautiful. Like everyone was an amazing, beautiful angel. And I just remember walking down the street, like, in awe of how beautiful every single person was. Um,
Mm.
yeah,
Can I just go
yeah.
back just a second there?
Hmm.
I want to really emphasize what you said about like that light coming into your room and
Hmm.
feeling it seeing you, like feeling it going into your heart. And just to when you've gone through trauma, you don't want to be seen,
That's
and
true.
you wanted to heal. And in order to heal, your heart needed to be seen, it needed to be enlightened. And so
That's
that
so right.
what a beautiful experience to because because I think that if you haven't experienced trauma, you don't understand how much hiding is involved in trauma, like how much we go within, and like we don't want people to really see us,
Yeah.
but
That's
that
so,
really is the path to healing. And what a beautiful experience to have this light come and just fully see you and be a part of your heart.
Julie, nobody's ever mentioned that. Thank you for making that connection for me because I've never thought about that either. And that's very beautiful and very true.
Yeah.
Um,
And sometimes I wonder, you said the voice stopped. Sometimes I wonder because, you know, uh, I've had these experiences too. And sometimes I wonder, did the voice stop or did I stop being
Listen.
able to hear?
Yeah.
Did I tune
Oh, I
out? And so that whole hat thing, which is you're so fun. I just love that. Like, don't put a graduation hat on me. That's not cute.
Yeah, I know. I just was like, it's like if somebody was just like, "Hey, do you like this hat?" I was like, "No, I don't want to wear that hat. It's not cute." But I do think like the message from that was that I was going to be living the hat of like I was going to be in grad school and like dealing like having this other life while the spiritual experiences were happening. I think that was
Ah,
I'll wear this hat. I'll put on this hat while I'm going through this because I was an awesome student. I was a lab manager. I helped with grants and research. But on the side, I was like having all these experiences and freaking out. But
yeah.
also, they were happening so deeply in my soul that they just felt really right. Like I thought I was losing it, but also I knew how much they were healing me.
Right. And then you start seeing this golden light around everyone and
Amazing.
feeling this immense love and connection with everyone, seeing them, how beautiful everybody is.
It was amazing.
And
Uh,
what happened to your nightmares at that point?
Okay, so there's a bunch of things that happened. One of them so the light happening, I can tell you about the nightmares, but that happened a little later in my 2 years. So the first thing was
Okay.
the light, and then that week was psychic dreams, which I did not believe in. I didn't think psychic dreams were a thing. But my mom had been a psychologist where I was raised to like analyze every dream as if it were about me. Like, oh, I saw that person in my dream. They must represent something about me. But then I started having psychic dreams that were coming true, like about my friends, like about relationships that I needed to mend, about situations that were going to happen to me. And that started literally that week, and that hasn't ever stopped. And the nightmares, I'll go ahead and tell that because that's kind of related. So from my trauma, I'd been having these horrible nightmares. I called them demons. Sometimes I'm embarrassed to talk about that because I wasn't raised to believe in anything like that. I don't want to say, let's all go back to the Middle Ages and to talk, but I was having these nightmares of these like dark, shadowy things that were circling my bed like every night since my trauma. And the Reiki didn't help, the therapy didn't help, the yoga didn't help. And sometimes it would get a little better, but like they'd always kind of be there. And I would be awakened in this sleep paralysis and really terrified of them. But during my spiritually transformative experience, my STE, I was awakened in the middle of the night to one of these nightmares with this shadowy figure circling me. It was trying to poke my heart and like get into my heart. And at this point, after having this beautiful light experience, I knew that I didn't have to be afraid of it anymore. And I was sitting outside my body in this waking dream nightmare, and I looked at the shadowy thing, knowing that it couldn't hurt me anymore. And I looked right at it and I said, "You can't hurt me. God lives in me and works through me." And I just said that over and over without fear, with total love and trust and faith that God was with me. And the nightmare just like went away. I went back to sleep. I've never had another nightmare like that again. And like I'd had those nightmares for 13 years, and it's been almost 20 years that I haven't had one. So,
Wow. And I just, there's so much that I love about your story. And when I hear that, um, because I don't know that I've ever shared this with you, but I had experiences like that too, not to the extent, but
mhm.
to the point that for many years, I feared praying because I was afraid I would attract negative energy to me.
Oh no.
And so, but what I now looking back, and I'm wondering if you've had the same experience. Now looking back, I'm so grateful for those experiences of that really heavy negative energy, because it gives us a real clear understanding of light, because there's such a difference.
So different.
And so for you to be in this space where you're feeling the power of the light to the point that you're like, no, this is what I want, this is who I am, I can no longer be affected by this darkness. I love
Oh,
that so much.
thank you. It was a huge night for me. Honestly, like I woke up the next morning like best night of my life. I got rid of those nasty nightmares. I felt so triumphant. And of course I just like went to grad school because no one knew I was going through any of that. But I was like, yes. But no, it's so true. And it's really the fear that keeps you, like I had to really be so clicked into faith, to the divine, to source, and just knowing that nothing could harm me in that space. I wish I remembered that all the time, because I still get worried about stuff, and like I still think about different things, and I'm like, I just need to get back to that space of total trust, total faith. And like it's just such a beautiful place. um Another thing that started happening besides those, getting rid of my nightmares, having psychic dreams, I started feeling angels. And this is also something like I did not believe in. Like maybe I'd read about them in the Bible, but I wasn't like that devout. I just, why would anybody ever feel an angel, you know? But I was feeling them like at a deep soul level. Like the first time I noticed it, I was going to sign up to study abroad, and I felt these two really tall angels on either shoulder. Like it felt like they went all the way up to heaven, and they were just telling me without words not to study abroad, not to sign up to do that. Again, like my whole experience was pretty mundane. It was like, it wasn't some big thing about like parting the sea or like doing anything. It was like, don't study abroad. Okay, cool, got it. I've seen angels and I feel them now. And like I felt them around me for most of my experience, but it was just such a deep feeling and sensing and seeing that I knew it was real. But after it ended, I was like, no, none of that was real. So, um, what other have? Okay, I also felt how connected we all are. So, um, this was close to a life review, and it happened like the first time I noticed how connected we all are. I had hurt my sister's feelings by accident. I just was being careless. I wasn't paying attention to what she needed, and she's one of my best friends and like definitely a soul sister, my real sister. And I had talked to her on the phone and realized how much I'd hurt her. And it wasn't like it dawned on me like a thought. It was like I felt in my body, my heart, my spirit, like how much I'd really hurt her. And I felt her feelings. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know I was doing that. I didn't know I was hurting people. And I also started to realize like how much it affects other people when I'm kind to them, like kind to anyone. So that's a huge part of my experience, was learning how much kindness really matters, and like loving other people, forgiving other people, seeing the best in others and ourselves. So that was pretty wild, because I was just like, it almost felt like they took the breath out of me. I was like, oh my gosh, like I was hurting people like this, you know? This is why this is spiritually transformative, because all of this stuff, I was like, what? There's light, there's angels, I'm hurting people. Like it was all just like a big wow. Um, Another thing that was a big wow was seeing an alternate timeline of my life, which is another thing I didn't believe in. And it was like I lived an alternate timeline of my life in 1 second. I was opening my computer to write at a coffee shop in New York. I was not planning to write about this. I was going to write about something else. Now I know I'm supposed to write and share about my spiritual experiences. That's like the highest path for me, which I'm finally doing. But this time I didn't know that. I opened my computer and I started to, as soon as I started to write, I saw my whole life and lived my whole life as if I'd published this book. I saw and felt the book getting published to bad reviews, how dejected and sad I would feel, the bad review, living out my life sad and lonely, and then like just like it was just a bad life. And I just remember thinking, okay, I'm not going to do that. And I just closed my computer because it was like it wasn't like I had a daydream or a thought about it. It was like I lived that whole life. Um, yeah, it was pretty wild. And after that, I started to feel small timelines especially towards the end of my experience, like how my life would change every time I made a different choice. And it was like really overwhelming for a while. Now I know if you tune into your heart, you can go on the right path and you don't have to stress so much. Um, so that was really wild. And then the very last part of my experience um, was the angel visitation dream that ended my experience when I had a dream about an angel who I thought was going to be my boyfriend for a really long time until I realized it was an angel. Um, I was like in the dream, I was like talking to this beautiful glowing person who was like I was saying in the dream, like, life is hard. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing. And this person was looking at me with all this love, and he was really glowing. He was very beautiful, just like really like cared about me, interested in me, like shining like all this love on me. And he was like, life is amazing. You need to go out and have a great life. Go have adventures. Go live a great life. Just saying all these like really nice things about how good life was and how like I just felt how loved I was. And I was like, I can't wait to meet him. What's your name? I was like, so cool. And he was like, my name's Jonathan. And I was like, when am I going to meet you? And he said, you'll meet me when you finish swimming. And then the dream shifted from me talking to him in my room to me being on a big ship and getting lowered down into the ocean and having to swim out alone into the ocean. When I woke up the next morning, basically all the light pulled back. It was like all the light that had been around me. That was the dream letting me know, like, this is basically it. You go have a good life, figure this out, go figure it out by swimming. And it was all gone. And I was so confused. I didn't know why I was still here on the earth. I thought at the end of my experience, I'd go live in heaven with God or something. And it was really tough and I was crying. I was like, I would cry and like wonder why God left me here. And then I would be like, well, and for a while, literally for every couple weeks, to every couple of months to every couple years till I finally gave up. I was like, I think I'm done swimming. I'm gonna meet this great guy now. Like I'm so excited to be done swimming. I'm definitely done swimming. Where's Jonathan? And it was like, no, like I'm gonna be swimming the rest of my life. And like this was a guide or an angel like letting me know that. But it was like my experience happened to someone that didn't believe in any of this and didn't know anything about anything like this. So I had to work it all out. And that
I'm
was
curious,
yeah.
who was there anybody that you could share this with? Were there people around you that helped you to integrate it? How did you,
Um Yeah,
yeah,
it was really hard. So I there's a couple people that helped me. So first, like my Reiki teacher, I remember calling her that first week after I saw the light. I was flipping out. I was like, I saw a light. I don't know why I saw a light. I don't know what's going on. Like, I think I'm losing it. And she started going through all these different things, like, what were you doing? What's happening in your life? And I just didn't real. And then as I was talking to her, I was like, oh, I devoted my life to God in my journal. And like, I hadn't even connected. She just started laughing. She was like, okay, that's why you saw a light. Like you wrote in your journal, you like took a written vow. I was like, I don't know. I didn't know that was going to do anything. That was one. So she was there for me, but one person there's two people besides that were huge mentors for me. One was my stepdad who came from a medicine tradition. So as my experience was starting, we didn't talk about it a ton, but he had a lot of dreams about me and taught me a lot of things that didn't make sense to me at the time. But he was keyed into my experience. He had a dream during this time that I was becoming an angel of God on the earth. And I was like, I'm not an angel. I don't even know what he's talking about. I just want to hang out with my friends. And like, I hadn't really connected what was happening. So
yeah.
he was there for me a lot. And then the last one, it's kind of a silly story. I don't always talk about this, but I Googled shaman because I heard my Reiki teachers talk about shaman. I Googled shaman New York and I found this shaman that I would go meet with like kind of semi regularly. He was another psychic dream that I had like before I met with him. it seemed kind of random, but I had a dream about meeting him. I had a dream about where he worked, and I had a dream about the whole first session. Um, and then I went to there and I was like, wait, this is exactly like how it was in my dream. And I was like, okay, something weird is really happening. I remember the first meeting that I had with him. I was like, we were talking. I thought he was really weird. And I was like, I devoted my life to God. I saw a light. I think I'm schizophrenic. Do I have to drop out of grad school? And he just was like, it's okay. We're all schizophrenic. You won't have to drop out of grad school. I was like, okay. But it kind of made me feel better. So I would like go talk with him sometimes. I mean, everything he said didn't make sense, but now I'm like, oh, maybe he was right. So it helped to have that a little bit. But most of it I was just figuring out on my own. And like a lot of my journey was it being in denial about it. As soon as after it ended, I was like, I think I just went really nuts for a while and I'm gonna ignore all of that. So
So, so what I'm hearing is it sounds like to the outside world, Rebecca is Rebecca.
yep.
And most people have no idea what's going on internally for you.
No.
But from your perspective, how did it change you? Because I know it took you several years, and we'll talk about that in a minute, several years to begin sharing it openly like you are now.
A long
But
time.
how did it change you during this time? Like, did you change the way you were living your life? Like, you had these specific things that happened where
Yes.
you felt like not studying abroad wouldn't be a
Yeah.
correct path for you, not writing that book wouldn't be a correct path. But how did it change you as you were moving through this and as you were integrating it?
It made me a lot nicer. It made me a lot nicer. And I also like couldn't lie anymore. Not that I was a big liar, but like if I said something like hurtful or untrue, it would like hurt me. I would feel in my throat. Um, I became much more forgiving and loving towards people, like, and I could also sense and feel like their light, everybody's light. I also like by the end of grad school, my experience ended and I had been like going down a research path, but then it was like, oh, I'm only going to go work with kids. And ever since my experience ended, I've worked with tons of children, and it just seemed like the only thing that I could ever do with my life was like work with people in a helping way. That might not be true for everyone who has a spiritual experience, but I knew that was like part of my work is to work with kids and people in my regular job. Um, I joke
As a
as a speech
speech
pathologist, yeah.
pathologist,
And
yes.
yeah, besides my spiritual work, my readings and healings, but I also like I started feeling other people's pain. Like if somebody was hurting around me, I couldn't look away from it. I had to like go to them and help them if I could. All kinds of other things. Like I joke that I lost all my game. Like I used to be a little bit of a heartbreaker, and then I was like, I love everyone. I was like, I would go to people like, you're so beautiful, like that was hard. So I was like, I didn't really know what to do with it. But anyway, yeah, it was just it was a becoming a much softer, kinder person.
Yeah. It's almost a breakdown of the ego and a building up of that spiritual empathy. Like everything that you're describing is so aligned with being a sensitive and an empath.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like breaking down the ego that I'd built up from going through my trauma and all the fractured false selves that I'd had to build up from that. And it was like coming from the inside out. Like, who was I? And that light was reconnecting me to that. It definitely changed me a lot.
I remember, and I don't know if this happened before or after you started. I feel like it happened before you
Mhm.
began sharing your story openly. Um, I remember you telling me about trying to decide um, should you become, should you join this church or should you be a Christian or should you follow the Jewish tradition or what should you do? And you had a dream, another psychic dream,
I did. I
which
had
was
a
so
dream.
beautiful. If you don't mind sharing that with us.
I'll definitely share it. Part of my journey to exploring my experiences was to explore the religions of my family and other religions as well. These days, I go to Episcopal church and conservative synagogue and just love both. But I also I prayed for guidance because this was like a struggle in my life. Like, what should I do with religion? Um, and I prayed to God, like, please give me a dream about what religion I should be. And I dreamt that night, I saw all of my Jewish friends like having Shabbat dinner and being really kind to each other and like being together. And I also dreamt that I dreamt that I saw all my Christian friends, they were saying prayers and having a prayer circle and being really kind and loving. And I woke up from that dream like, I mean, it really is that maxim, love God, love people. If you're doing that, that's what it is. And that was maybe just guidance for me. I don't want to say what everyone should do, but I just woke up feeling like if I'm loving God and I'm loving my neighbor, then I think I'm doing the right path. Um, so it has been hard because I know religion is such a divisive topic, but that brought me some peace and I felt a lot of comfort from that dream. Thanks for bringing it up.
Well, and I love that because I think that this is a time for us to um, maybe release some of that division that we feel between the religions and between different belief systems, and I really feel like it's an opportunity for us all to be more loving and kind towards everybody regardless of their belief systems.
Yeah, and that's another thing, like, I've been thinking lately too, like, a lot of my spiritual experiences happened because I was trying to heal all the way, and stressing out about religion does not help me heal. It just makes me more stressed because I can't figure out it's like I just need to like what really was true for my experience about the divine was like love and feeling that love and living that love, and all of the rest is just like mental stress. So at
Yeah.
least
Well,
the
and you
healing.
shared a little bit about your healing work. Did you begin doing some of the healing work that you do now, the energy work and the angel readings and so forth that you do now, before or after you started sharing your experiences? Are they
I
kind of
started
like,
before, so it was kind of a slow growth. So I would like start to do healings for people, and I would just kind of do a little bit, and then people would like more of it, and then I'm reconnecting to my experience and like bringing that light through and the source that I connected to, the divine. Starting to do readings as well, and then my spirit. I didn't start sharing my experience till like a year and a half ago.
yeah,
Well, just about a year ago, 2023 IANS, I had never told my story, but this spring of 2023, I'd gotten like a real big push. Like my angels and guides, I could just feel them. It's not like I heard them with words. It was like, it's time for you to start talking about your experiences. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to talk about this weird experience that I had. Like, okay. But I mean, I'd been kind of following the IANS, an International Association for Near-Death Studies, and the near-death community, because once my experience ended and I was trying to figure it out, I read like a ton of near-death experience books and like felt like they really made a lot of sense, even though even though I hadn't had a near-death experience. So anyway, I submitted to be a speaker at IANS, and I had never told anyone. I just told those few mentors. I had told a couple friends, and then just shut up about it because I just decided it was fake. And I got accepted to speak at the conference, and I went, and I had panic attacks. I was shaking, but I did it, and now I can talk about it. It's like I broke through that that barrier, and it was so amazing to feel so accepted and so embraced, and like this community. That's how I met you. I mean, it's such a beautiful community, and I feel so supported. And I know that my story is helping people because I've heard other people resonate with it, which is the reason why I'm telling it.
yeah.
So,
And you recently shared some of the ways that you integrated your experience and began to think of it more as being real than, and can you share some of those ways that you connected to the,
yeah. Yeah. So, like, I really over many years worked out that it was real. So, my experience ended in 2008, and I started talking about it in 2023. For a long time, I just decided it wasn't real. And then I was like, well, maybe there's more going on, because one way was that I was still having psychic dreams. Like I decided it wasn't real, but I was still having dreams that were coming true. And that was kind of like like I can't really deny that I dreamt that something was going to happen with a friend and then it happened. Or I was going to get in a car accident. I dreamed about that and then I got in a car accident in the exact same spot. Everything was the same in the dream. So that was one way. Another way was my stepdad, because he could see what was happening to me. He really validated it for me. And he came from a culture where this was embraced and accepted. So that like was like, maybe it's a cultural difference. Maybe what's happening to me is something that's real. Um, Another way, what was the other way? You remember probably better than I. I had four reasons that I was giving. One was doing readings, and like when I tell someone something that's true. Um, Oh, and the number one way is that it made my life better. So I've talked about this recently with a psychiatrist I met actually, and I was like, look, I love that I can talk with you about this. And I know like maybe my experience wouldn't be real in a medical setting, but like it made my life so much better. And she was like, yeah, that's it. Did it make your life better or worse? If it made it better, then it's like that's something really worth considering because everything that happened to me in that spiritual experience made me happier, made me feel more whole and complete. And so um that's real enough, you know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
100%. I love that. And I just say yes, yes, yes to everything that you've shared because um, as we've gotten to know each other, like so much similarities, even though
So many. I love
I'm
it.
probably old enough to be your mom, but we
You're my
won't
big
talk about
sister.
that.
My big sister.
Exactly. Big sister. I like that. I like that. Yeah. So now that you've started to share your story, and it sounds like maybe you have a book that might be coming, and
I'm working on it. I am working on it. I
yeah.
am. Yeah.
So how has that changed your life being more open about this experience?
Um, It's let me know, like it's kind of showed me one thing that's changed is like as you said, like everyone saw me as the same Rebecca, but I am finally like being very honest about my actual real experiences from healing from trauma to these. So I'm kind of learning what friends are cool with that and what friends aren't. I'm learning like who actually really loves and accepts me and who's like, well, actually, I found out most people are pretty cool with it and most people don't really care, or they're like, whoa, tell me more. I want to come see you for a session. And I've been really surprised at their friends that are like, really open and embracing, and that's been really neat. Um, I don't know. Since I started sharing, I've had to face a lot of fear of being vulnerable and rejected because I'm such a people pleaser. I want to get along with everyone and I never want to say anything that could be, I mean, controversial. I would sit by myself like before I started sharing, like I knew I was kind of supposed to talk about it. I'm like, I think I could tell my story. And it's like, but I think people like really fight about God a lot. Like maybe I shouldn't talk about this, But it's like, so I'm kind of learning it's okay. I'm going to tell my story. It doesn't have to be true for everyone. Kind of feeling safe and sharing. Um, and I don't know. I've met so many cool people through sharing. I feel like I have a whole new friend group, and I'm so excited about all these experiencers that are like, yeah, come on over. We're here. We love your story. We had the same thing happen to us. And that's been great. Like you. I mean, I'm so thankful to have met you and Vinny and Betty and just so many amazing souls. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm great. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for your sharing your story. 100%. Um, One of the questions I like to ask all my guests is what are some of the ways that you connect on a daily or weekly basis to your spirituality? What are some of your spiritual practices that
That's
have
a
been
beautiful
helpful
question
to you?
because I've had to develop those for a long time, over time. Every day I do like a light meditation where I bring and breathe light through my body, and it's the same light that came to me, and it brings me a lot of peace. And that's where I feel the angels when I do my angel communication messages. You know about those. So I tune in and I start to feel the angels really close to me as I breathe and relax and bring that light through me. I know they're always there, but most of the time I'm running around like a mom with a job and like a regular life. So that's one of my huge practices. I try to do journal writing. Automatic writing is big for me. And I've been trying to do Vinny's Hour of Power, which is such a cool concept where the first 30 minutes of the day and the last 30 minutes of the day. Sorry, Vinny, I'm not stealing it from you. I'm sure you can tell it. I just love it. So it's one of my practices. You try to put in like your positive influences for the bookends of your day. I love that. So yeah. And then meditating, breathing. And I've been doing a lot of like forgiveness work, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that. Where can people, because I know people are listening and they're like, where can I stay connected with Rebecca? I want to stay connected with Rebecca. So
Um,
where can people find you? How can they connect with you?
yeah, you can find me on my website, which is RebeccaKastl.com. Rebeccakastl. It's spelled a little differently. That's where you can book a reading or a healing with me. You can also find me on my Instagram. I'm Rebecca Kastl on all the platforms. I have a new YouTube channel. I'm trying all the platforms. Eventually, maybe I'll just have one, but I'm kind of spreading out all over. Because now that I'm sharing, I'm like, okay, I'm going to just share everywhere.
That's
So
awesome. Anything else you'd like to share before we say
I just
goodbye?
want to say thank you. I just think you are so beautiful. I really just am such a fan of yours. So I'm so excited you're doing this podcast, and I wish you so much success.
Well, I'm a huge fan of yours as well. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for sharing with us.
Love you. Bye, y'all.